Okay, friends, I know that everybody's not back in the room, but that was 10 minutes. I was paying attention. And so I want to get started because I don't want to go over. And I am so excited to hear both the poem and the sermon following our dialogue. And yesterday, I hear this poet all the time, but I was blown away yesterday. I was blown away. I made the assignment and I was blown away. So I'm really looking forward to both the poet and the sermon. My role, as I understand it, is for us to talk about how you, as the pastor, take care of yourself in the midst of these very stressful days. And I'm going to make I'm going to make a couple of statements that might seem offensive, and I recognize that, but I'm going to say it anyway. I am United Methodist Elder in Full Connection, West Ohio Conference, so I get to say this part. To be a connectional ministry, we are some of the most unconnected people I have ever seen in the world. And any Methodists understand what I'm saying? Right. So I wonder about that. And I said to, I'm Dr. Gibson, I call him Gino, so I'm going to call him Gino here. I wonder about that because Gino, I was at his church Sunday. He's a Baptist. Are y'all Progressive Baptist, National Baptist? I don't remember. Y'all are dually affiliated in predominantly Black Baptist associations. And I was with him and one of my sons in the ministry, which is why I ended up being there instead of at North Broadway, which is where I was supposed to be Sunday. Sorry about that, Pastor. And I was just watching them. Now, Earl is in Memphis. He's one of my sons in the ministry. And Gino is here. And they maintain this deep connection with 3 or 4 other guys who are in other places in the country, thinking about somebody in Virginia, somebody in Chicago, somebody in Nashville. They're close. They are really close. They text each other. They pray with each other. They talk about sermons with each other. Every last one of them send me emails going, "Can I say this, Doc?" when they are trying to not say something sexist, offensive, they'll say, "Hey, this is what I want to say," and so I see myself as somebody who is a resource for them, but I'm not in the group. I just know who the group is what I'm saying. And I wondered as I was thinking about that to get ready for this, for those of us who are supposed to be connectional, who are you connected to? I don't mean the way we all, let's just tell the truth, roll our eyes when we know we got to show up at whatever meetings because it takes time out of what our busy schedules, whatever we said to ourselves about having to meet with the bishop or the DS or with the ministers in the area. How are we connected? How are you tending your soul? When I first left seminary, I had a friend who was Presbyterian, and we were all denominations, a group of us, and she called me one day. She actually called the group. We did a group call. This was a long time ago. And she said, "This is what I did in session today," and she was very proud of herself, and we were all shocked. And then when she finished, she said, "What do you think?" And we said, "Call first." Some things we do in our congregations, we probably do need to ear it out, sound it out with somebody else before you do it, because sometimes we are creating for ourselves problems that we don't need to create. That's the first thing I want to say. Who are you connected to? Selah, pause, think about that question for a minute. My second follow-up to that question is, if you're not connected, why are you not connected? One of the things that shows up on almost every survey about clergy is that they are lonely or they are isolated. Why is that true? So I asked somebody yesterday if it was a male thing, because all the women I knew were in these groups with women. And then I was like, well, no, there are women who are out there hanging out on the edges too. And then I was like, well, y'all, I know this sounds racist. Is it a white thing? Because I know all these black people who are in these groups. And I was like, well, no, because I know some black people who say they're lonely. So what is it that keeps us from connecting so that we're not doing this work by ourselves? I just remind you, Jesus called disciples, groups of people, to be with him in his ministry. Jesus did not do ministry by himself. Did not. So if the problem is a Messiah complex, you're not even being a good Messiah. Because he didn't do that. So I want you all to take 2 or 3 minutes with each other. I don't care about you doing groups. I don't actually care about that. But I want you to think about who you're connected to and why, and whether they are helping you do ministry. So find somebody to talk about with that for about 2 or 3 minutes. And if your answer is nobody, maybe you're sitting next to the person you can be connected to. All right, you have 30 seconds. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Thank you very much for holding that conversation. I know that you could have more. Attention, attention. Attention, Kmart shoppers. Okay. So anybody, did you learn anything about yourself in just that brief 3 minutes? Anybody want to share? You don't have to if you don't want to, but anybody? So the question is, what makes some groups jail and others break up, and then you have to constitute a different group? I mean, part of the challenge of the itineracy, I believe, is that you have to learn actually to make the world your parish, and we're not good at that. We make small congregations our parish, and so we don't know how to befriend people. People who come into the ministry from the military often are better at this than those of us who, because they've moved 3 or 4 times, they've learned how to make friends wherever they are. And, the biblical text, if you will have friends, you must show yourself friendly. I'm an introvert, so I'm not going to be out waving at people, but I must have a sign on my head that says, she's friendly, talk to her. Because people will walk up to me and just start telling me their business. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I think it is a discipline, as in discipled decision to make, a practice to make it into making friends. Now, let me just say this around boundaries. Part of the problem we have in the United Methodist Church, and I know this is not just United Methodist, I know it's not, is that we are tempted to make friends inside the church with the people that we perceive to be powerful because we want them on our side. And I'm going to tell you, those people cannot be your friends. And here's why. Because at the same time, they then become controllers. I'm going to tell you a story about, I tell this story because I have been licensed or ordained for 47 years. I pastored for 27. So I am not shooting from the hip about what I'm talking about. When we pastored in Austin, I had a man whose tithe at the moment in the late 80s, early 90s, his family tithe was $4,000 a month to the church because he worked for Dale. And, so he took that as having power in the church. And one day he came into my office. I wonder if he'd have gone into my now ex-husband's office, if this would have come out differently. But he chose my office by the power of the Spirit. He walked into my office and made a threat. And his threat included that he and his family would withdraw their tithe from the church. To which I said, may I quote to you what Peter said to Simon the magician in Acts. You and your money perish. That was Peter's way of saying, you and your money go to hell, right? And I said, the ministry will not be held captive to your money. If it's in the vision, it's in the budget. And if God cannot provide, then it can't happen. But you will not hold us hostage. He and his family left. I am not lying. This is the truth. 2 weeks later, a family the same size came to our congregation. Both of them worked for Dale. Their tithe was $8,000 a month. But here's what I'm trying to get to about taking care of yourselves as leaders. Part of it is separating yourself from the politics of the ministry. It's hard to do. I'm not suggesting that it's easy, but 27 years of ministry tells me it can be done, right? And you would be surprised, I believe, if you trusted God for what is not present in the person who wants to hold the church hostage. I asked Dr. Gino to stay because he told me a story and I want to know if I can share a little bit of it. Sunday, okay. So he came to the congregation one of the biggest Baptist church in Columbus, following one of the most revered Baptist preachers in the world, not Columbus, Charles Booth, in the nation. And he came to the church, and y'all know what it is to follow a beloved leader. You know what it is if somebody has been at the church for 5, 10 years, and then you are sent there, and you are not them, and they want you to be them. And then you try to contort yourself into being them, but you can't. And then they're disappointed that you're not their beloved pastor. And they want their beloved pastor to come back and bury their mama and baptize their baby. But in the Methodist church, connectionally, they're not supposed to do that. And we succumb to that because we don't want to lose them. Oh, I see the guilt in people's faces. I'm going to quit looking at you. So, as it happens following a congregation, a change in congregation, giving went down. And Gino, talking to his people and everybody else, not in the church, but praying and talking to his people, like, what the world? What have I got myself into? Blah, 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 blah. I would say, how you doing? He's like, Doc, don't quit praying. And I know what that means, right? So, sitting in the congregation was someone who was a member of the congregation, had always been a member of the congregation, is what I understand. Oh, he joined under you. So he joined under Gino's pastorate and was watching, because he was a discerning person, and was watching and went to the trustee and said, is the church in trouble financially? Trustee said yes. Does the pastor have integrity? I think he has integrity, but you know what you see and what is, this might be something else. The trustee, not a rumor against him, nothing, whatever. Answer, there will be $50,000 from my accountant tomorrow to the church. Y'all are like, what? It's like you don't know who's in your communities. You don't know who's in your neighborhoods. And if you stay like this, then you won't get to meet the people that God is calling to bless your ministries. Give him a mic to add to this. Somebody grab the mic. Is the mic over there? Because I know you raise more money after that. Is that the ad? Go ahead and tell the rest of it. Turn it on.
At the time, I was ready to, you know this, I was ready to go back to Memphis and say, forget this and do something else. This guy did not even know me. He says, is he in trouble? No, he's not in trouble. He's had integrity, yeah. He says, hopefully you can raise more money with it. The church, we did a month drive. The church on one Sunday raised $86,000 on top of the 50, and we were only 118 behind, so we were now in the black. Yeah, that happened.
Right, right. I could tell tons of stories like that, including the one where this woman who was a pole dancer at a club showed up at our church in Austin, and one of the elders called me and said, just want you to know, Pastor, I lived around the corner from the church. Just want you to know we have a visitor this morning, and I want to know what you want me to do. And she said, should I give her something to cover up? Because she came in her work clothes. And I said, no, you may not cover up. She is not going to be made to feel shame. She showed up at church. What you're going to do is get on the phone tree, call all the elders, tell them to call everybody on the phone tree, and tell them to keep their eyes forward and not to behave badly. We have a guest in our midst. That woman became a member of our church and one of the best dancers in our dance team and brought people to church. Today, I don't know how she found us. my point is, part of taking care of ourselves is believing in the God we say we believe in. No, seriously, because I think it is so easy to get focused only on the problem that we don't see the possibilities of what God is doing, right? That we can't see. It literally took 12 people, 13, to turn the world upside down. It Somebody said, "Do you believe what happened in the Bible is real?" It's like, well, here's what I know. Things changed in the world significantly after this story that we say we live. Do we believe that the God who changed the world significantly is still capable of that? So my first thing was, who are you connected to? My second thing is, don't sell the ministry out for any reason. And then my third thing is, how are you taking care of your soul? I know as a pastor that time can get away from you. I know. And I know that boundaries are hard to keep. I know that. But they also are necessary to keep. Story, a friend of mine had on his calendar that he prayed from 10 to 12 every day at the church office. Somebody showed up at the church and said, "I must see the pastor now." And his secretary said, "The pastor is in prayer right now." "Oh, well, he won't mind me interrupting." She said, "No, we never interrupt his praying." Well, this is important. His praying is important. I'm asking you, who gets to interrupt your time with God? When have you decided that your time with God, both in prayer and in meditation and sitting still to listen, can be interrupted by any and everybody? So think about that for a moment. That's a Selah. Do you have time on your calendar that no one can interrupt but God? I would invite you to put God on your calendar. I invite you to put God on your calendar. And nobody gets to interrupt it. I was doing a workshop for women in ministry, and I was explaining to them at the time, I was doing Bikram yoga 3 times a week. I'm not doing it right now because I can't find it here, but they not close to me. And they said, "How do you do that?" And I said, "Well, I get up, I put my clothes on, I get in the car, I drive over, I put my mat down, I do the Bikram yoga, I take the 30 minutes afterwards to clean myself up, and what if something happens and people need you? I will be there when that 2-hour period is over." Taking care of myself is taking care of the church. What good will it do if you die in the name of ministry? They're going to sing a song, eat a piece of chicken, and hire somebody else? Pack up your office, move it to the side, and go. Here's what I'm getting at. Do something. I've already talked about prayer, and I really mean that. Put God on your calendar, but also put yourself on your calendar. Put yourself on your calendar. I was tickled Sunday, told you I was with Gino and Earl. Earl preached, but I needed a church nap. But some of us are so busy on Sunday afternoon that we don't get to rest. We have meetings, because, quote, that's the only time the people will meet. Okay, then they meet once a month then. And I don't have to be in every meeting. And what I'm inviting you to is doing ministry differently. I'm telling stories because I hope the stories help you hear what I'm saying. So I don't know how many of you are in rural settings or whatever, but I went to do a workshop with a church, and I asked them to bring the church calendar out, spread it out on the table. We had butcher paper around. I said, now every ministry is going to color in a different color when you're meeting and what you're doing at the church and blah, blah. When they finished it, it was all filled out. And when I tell you, they were a ministry of about 30 people at the time. And I was like, I was tired looking at it. So I said, why are y'all this busy? And you know, because y'all are church leaders, only 10 people in that 30 group was actually doing all that work, right? So I was like, why is the church calendar this full? When did you go get to be with your family and your neighbors and your friends, where you live, work, and play? When do you go to be the Christ in the world? To be the presence of God in the world? And they were like, it had never occurred to them that that's what they should be doing, because church ministry was always inside the church. What if Bible study is at the Applebee's? And everybody likes to eat. And people can say, come eat with us, without saying, come go to church with me. And then before you know it, there are folks who show up for church because they had dinner with you. They had a meal with you. We had a ministry called WIT, Whatever It Takes. They were young people. They started it. We did not start it. That was the other thing. I started no ministries in the church. I asked everybody to imagine, and they had 6 months, and if it failed, I said, thank God. We now know that doesn't work. What else are we going to try? We celebrated when things didn't go well, because it proved to us, like Edison and the light, that something else will work. Edison failed how many times? Was it 1,000? I thought it was something like 10,000. His note said he failed over and over and over again, and we failed one time, and we don't want to try anything else. To be an successful batter is what? 3 out of 10 times at bat, we think you're great. 3 out of 10 times we at the church, and we think you're a miserable failure. Reorienting our minds around what is successful will also relieve our stress. I'm telling you it will. I know what I'm talking about. Well, I was going to tell you about WIT. So WIT decided what they would do is they made T-shirts that we didn't all start wearing, and the T-shirt had on it, Jesus, a now word. That was what their T-shirt said. And they would go play pickup basketball. And their thing was, if they won, the people they beat would come to their WIT meeting. And, you know, they never thought they were going to lose to the WIT crew. And they always lost to the WIT crew, because all them boys played high school basketball and were on the first team. But they didn't look like that. And so before you know it, our youth group that was 5 people ended up being 25 people, because they said, well, this is what it takes. The young people. It's giving people permission to try things that you yourself didn't commission. If it's not illegal and not immoral, go for it. You don't even have to like it, but if it's not illegal, not immoral, let them go for it. That is taking care of your soul as the pastor, because it is putting ministry in the hands of the people. Now, I didn't quote scripture, so you think I'm making it all up. The people came to Jesus, the disciples came to Jesus and said, these people done come out here, they hungry. What we need to do? Jesus said, you feed them. And they was like, what? And he's like, you feed them. So they went to see if anybody had any stuff that could be shared. And it got multiplied because they went to find out if there was any food in the crowd. They didn't think to bring food. They said to Jesus, send these people home so they can eat. We can't feed all these people. We ain't got that kind of money or that kind of time. Jesus said, no, you feed them. They found some food in the crowd. What was it? 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. And Jesus said, sit them down, lifted up what looked like not enough, prayed over it, fed the people. But it started with the phrase, you feed them. Jesus did not say, humna, 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 humna. Down comes some bread and a fish. He did not do that. Helping the congregation see what's in their midst and what can be a source of feeding and healing for a community is a part of your work. And they will be surprised at what they have. Okay, that's actually all I have to offer you. Now I am taking Q&A, meaning I'll answer if I can. If not, I'll just say, I don't know. Or I'll look at y'all and say, what you think? So any questions about what I've said, any insights about what I've said, any add-ons to what I've said that you want to give? Hello, Pastor Judy.
Good evening, morning. What time is it? That time of day.
It is still morning.
The thing about when people take ownership of the work is that they appreciate it more. They are vested in it. They can fix it when it goes awry. They can call people out amongst themselves. It's that vesting in the work, because when Jesus told them to do the work, the disciples were hungry already.
They were hungry
so they
too.
wanted some food themselves. They were just waiting for somebody to tell them, go ahead and find some food. But it's the vesting that people get when they actually do the work versus someone telling them, okay, do step A, step B, step C. No, I'm vested in this thing.
I think also, Judy, thank you for saying that. I think also sometimes we as pastors look out and think there's nothing in this crowd. Ain't no fish and loaves out here, so why would I even ask? And it is often surprising what people have. I am currently reading some of the essays from some of my students in their mid-program review, and I am just overwhelmed with how gifted our students are. But I wouldn't know it if I weren't reading these NPR things. So I'm like, okay, how do you find out the hidden figures in your midst? Yes, Peter.
Something that I've noticed in conversation, and I hate to say this, and if it's true about you, just make a face like it's not, and that's okay. But I have very rarely met a burnt out, lonely pastor, forgive my language, when it wasn't their own damn fault. You don't take your day off.
Yes.
You don't take your Sabbath. You wait till Saturday, which is supposed to be family time, to finish your sermon. And as a result, you wake up Monday morning and you take Monday off because that's the day you have to recuperate from the fact that your life is unsustainable. And I made a decision early on when I first entered ministry 20 years ago that was never going to happen to me. And if you call me on my day off, I always like to say, If it's my day off and you have an emergency, I have an emergency number that you can call. Oh, what is it? It's 911.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so to follow up on what Peter has said, I worked for the Alzheimer's Association for some years, and one of the things we used to say to people, because sundowning is a thing for Alzheimer's patients, they get agitated, they get aggressive, and so we would say, if we have trained you and you get hit at 5 p.m., it's your fault, because they hit. That's what they do. You don't do that. So yes to taking your time. And let me tell you, had a conversation last night with somebody saying, oh, but if I don't do it, and I said, then it won't get done. Someone asked me when I was pastoring, how do you go on vacation? I said, I book a flight. And it was another pastor, and they were like, but blah, blah. This is when our church was only about 60 members. And they were like, but what if things happen? I said, what if somebody dies? And I said, they'll be dead when I get back. I literally leave somebody in charge. And that is the person and I know, because I was a pastor, I know people will say, nobody visited me from the church, even if the elders visit them, because they say, the pastor didn't visit me. Therefore, I was like, no, we just have to train people differently. If the Stevens ministry came to see you, the church visited you. That's my job as the pastor, to just keep saying that. My job, we used to say as pastors, my job isn't to do all the feeding. My job is to make sure you eat well. That's why I can bring a guest pastor in. I'm not going to stand up anybody up in the pulpit that I'm going to have to come back and clean up behind them. I'm not doing that, which is why I'm thankful for the male pastors who love me enough to say, listen, what I know is I'm never going to have to clean up behind you. Because I was a pastor. I'm never going to go into somebody's church and make it harder for them after I leave than it was before I came, especially if they're already having troubles. You know what I mean? And sometimes pastors will invite me in to do the hard work. Like, listen, this is what I want you to do, and then this is what I'm going to do afterwards. And I do that assignment, and I go on about my way. But I'm saying to you, take the time off to renew yourself. Some of y'all literally need an Elijah moment, which is to say, go to sleep. Elijah was depressed, and the angel said, go to sleep. Elijah woke up, the angel fed him and said, go back to sleep. You need snack and a nap. Yes. We have 5 minutes.
This kind of piggybacks on something both of you have said, but especially in the United Methodist system, because we are itinerant, whatever we do as clergy is leaving a footprint for the person that comes behind us. So if we're not taking our Sabbath, taking our vacation, taking a day off, it makes it that much harder for whoever follows us. And likewise, if we're not building a system where the laity are leading the mission, when that pastor leaves, everything falls apart.
Right.
And the next pastor has to try to resurrect whatever's going on.
Right.
So in any system, whether it's a call, you have to function well because someone is coming behind you eventually.
Right.
And you owe it to them to have the foundation laid so that they can be successful.
Exactly. The church means, the word ecclesia is a political term, and it literally means a body of people that manages the system. You are not the church. You are a member of the church with a gift that comes to the church, but you are not the church as the pastor. Yes.
I'm at a point of struggle in my ministry right now, and maybe some other people are in the situation where on the one hand, I'm thinking resurrection and new life. On the other hand, I know that there are so many churches that are financially running in the red. And I'm torn between feeling like I'm not faithful because I'm looking at where that balance sheet is going. You follow what I'm saying?
I do.
I'm looking at that. If you could share a little more about the discernment behind being practical versus being faith-filled and making space for God.
Right. Two things. The making space for God happens in our discipline of prayer and allowing God to lead us. Sometimes God says, close it. And I know this is hard for people to hear, particularly in the United Methodist Connection, because we've lost so many congregations because of the disaffiliation. And yet, sometimes cutting down a tree, roots, sprigs sprout up, and new life appears. We say resurrection, but resurrection only comes after death. And we may be sent to some places to be the chaplain to see it end well. We may be. That doesn't mean, I'm going to say this and then I think I'm going to shut up. The Church of Jesus Christ is built upon a rock, and that church will always prevail. The church is not dying. I don't care how many times somebody says, oh, the church is dying. I know that because all these weird things are springing up, like homebrew and Wild Goose and whatever. All these people who don't come to our churches but love Jesus and want to be there and love Jesus. I'm saying to you that the Spirit of Christ is in the earth, rebirthing the church again and again and again. Now, the institutions that we are overseeing, we may see some of that fall away, but I don't even think the United Methodist Church is dying. I don't care how many times people say that, because I see too many new churches springing up. It may be that the local congregation we are called to oversee may need to sunset, and then something new is going to grow in that place. It may be, but the Church of Jesus Christ is not dying. You can't make me believe it, no matter how many times you say it. I know too much about him. You can't make me doubt him. Okay? I know too much. I just don't believe it. So what I would say is realism comes out of our prayer life. Because I will tell you, there are some times when we look at things and we don't see the thing. And how I know that is, can't remember the name of the servant who said, I can't remember the scripture, somebody help me. But they were surrounded by armies. Gehazi, yeah, they were, Elisha, yeah. Y'all know the Bible. There you go. Surrounded by hosts. And sure, they were going down. And God said, open the young man's eyes so he can see the host that is with us. And what I'm suggesting as I say that is, part of what I said about what you see in your communities, there may be a host that you don't see while you're looking at the red on the line. And ask God to open your eyes for insight. When Rudy Rasmus went to St. John's downtown in Houston, there were 5 people and a dwindling endowment at a big steeple church, United Methodist. He stepped over a homeless man to get into the church. The DS had sent him to close St. John's 30 years ago. 4,000 members later, at their height, 8,000 members, St. John's is still open because God gave him a vision beyond the red line. God said to him, you just stepped over the ministry when he stepped over the homeless man to go in the door. and the things they have done and continue to do at St. John's. So I would also encourage you to look at what other people are doing. Same thing happened to First Congo in Memphis. They took over the old First Baptist Church in Cooper, what's that neighborhood? Cooper Young neighborhood. And the church had gone all the way down. And Cheryl, who is now retired, went in and she just kept saying, what if? And they got money from the state because it was a historic building, and they revitalized the building. The old educational wing, they turned into a hostel. They rented out all the offices to nonprofits in the city. That church went from 10 people to I don't know how many people are there now, but a vibrant congregation because she looked beyond the red line with the question, what if? My time is up. Thank y'all.